Bruins fans. All right, I'm going to talk about the 3-2 result over the Winnipeg Jets. Let's do a little bit of a timeline. So we had that blowout loss against the Carolina Hurricanes, 7-1 or something. Gross. Got it done against Washington. A little bit of a depleted Washington as they were without Carlson, Orlov, Sheary, and Oshie. But they had Backstrom back. Ovi's looking really strong. Kuznetsov is always very dangerous. So we got the job done against Washington. Now we're coming into another W team, Winnipeg. Um, less, definitely a step down in competition compared to the Carolina and Washington teams we just beaten. But this game was about sticking to the plan, making sure we were correcting our mistakes that we were making in the Carolina and Washington games. Not defending that vulnerable ice, and making sure our passes are clean and crisp through the neutral zone. Just the small details. And this is a team we should beat comfortably. We should be able to come out of that building or come out of that game with a strong sense of building action towards the next game. So Boston, as they usually do, have good jump in the first period. First 3 minutes, boys are flying, good energy, but unfortunately give up a goal. Carlo gets flat-footed on the blue line. The Winnipeg speedy forwards just jump around him. The wrist shot comes and it beats Rask underneath his armpit here. It's one that Rask probably normally has on most occasions, but that's probably an example of Rask not playing those Providence games for tune-up after 9 months out of hockey play. So far, Rask's save percentage has not been fantastic, but we will expect him to get better as the season goes on, and then obviously in the playoffs, he's usually locked down, shut down, and stone cold, calm, and collected. After that 3 minutes, Winnipeg are up 1-0. I might call them Washington more than once in this review. But what I actually want to talk about is what happens right after Winnipeg scores. So you see it's 1-0, 3 minutes in. They've just scored a goal. And like has happened too much this year, Boston are caught sleeping after letting in a goal. So look at the forwards, doing a lot of puck watching. This was a passing play that was able to split our defense. After we give up a goal, we should not be flat-footed and allowing the forwards to push in like this and find so many gaps. We've given up too many goals and good scoring opportunities right off our own goals. We must shut this down in the future. The puck's right here. Kopp has a great chance to just wait out Rask and try and rip a backhand, or cut back in for a deke if the puck settles on him. Thankfully, it rolls on him a little bit, and the Bees get a nice break here. But this is a very dangerous scoring opportunity to go down 2-0 in a game that we should be winning. These mistakes have to be cleaned up. Good teams will put the game away if they go up 2-0 on you in the first 3 minutes of the game. I was very disappointed by that, but it's something that we have to keep working on. So we talked about Rask letting in that goal he usually has. But after we give up that chance, in the first 3 minutes even, the boys did have good jump. Boston were moving well. And a great example of this was Pasternak and Hall working really well, pushing into the enemy zone. The Jets had a rookie defenseman, Dylan Sandberg, and I think the Bruins game planned for that going in. Pasternak and Hall at separate times in the game took direct, saw their opportunity and either skated across the ice or straight at the rookie defenseman to try and work on him. Pasternak did a really good between the legs. He does that between legs move where he protects the puck with his body and plays it in a north-south fashion to get it between his legs up out in front of him and then go around the defenseman. Worked on him. Yeah, it was just something I noticed throughout the game. Hall tried it later on in Sandberg in the third. Sandberg defended it much better than he did right off the jump in the first on Pasta. Grizz takes a hit into the boards. I can't remember who hit him on Winnipeg, but it was just one of those hits where sometimes our forwards make the choice to turn into the boards versus turning out so they can still look at the puck. And it's just one of those ones where sometimes the forward has the responsibility to respect the numbers on the player's jersey. Like in minor hockey, on the back of the numbers, there's always a stop sign in Canadian minor hockey, and that's not present. And sometimes the forwards forget it should be there, and they should be respecting the numbers and where the boards are and how they push the other player into them. A great example was actually Pierre-Luc Dubois later on in this game on when they smashed out the glass. The glass didn't smash, but the glass broke off of the partition, and that was because Dubois and Coyle were tangled up going into the boards, and Dubois did the responsible thing of not shoving him into the boards, but wrapping up and just carrying in. And it was a fine hockey play. Hmm. There was a crazy Kyle Connor breakaway for Winnipeg that led to a crazy sequence. Connor ripped it off the glass over the net, and then we got a pretty unlucky bounce that bounced out in front. They had a great pass back to Connor again, who's got like a wide open 2/3 of the net and a huge shot block by Derek Forbert. He had a really good game with a point on the board, but defensively, he is very, very responsible, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So through this first period, even though Boston had a good first 3 minutes, Winnipeg have definitely had the run of play through this period so far. Good action. The defense of Winnipeg are doing a really good job of stepping up on their own blue line. So what Boston have loved to do is push into the blue line with more than one person, usually in a relatively straight line, and do a drop pass. So once they break into the line, you can drop pass, and then you have a defenseman coming behind you. So you've come in with two people, one, two, and then there's a third defenseman. So you create a triangle. The way to defend that, though, is just a really active and aggressive forecheck. Carolina showed us how to beat our own strategy when they smoked us with that early aggressive forecheck. Winnipeg started to do that as well on their own blue line. They were having good stands, stopping us right before our entry or right as we were trying to gain entry into the zone. Not to let that deter them, though. Boston kept pushing. The third line was bringing energy in this game, and they get rewarded. Oscar Steen buries as Coyle has a shot attempt blocked out in front. They're just buzzing around the net. Really, really good energy. Oscar Steen gets one, which is fantastic for him. Love, love, love how good he has been performing in the NHL. Um, Finding production is really, really hard, but really important to carve out your spot in the roster. He got cut one game for Foligno. I hope that doesn't keep happening because it makes our team worse as a result. We're a worse team without Oscar Steen and with Nick Foligno in his place. Or Jake DeBrusk on the opposite side, of course. Steen and DeBrusk have looked really, really good together. They've been building a lot of chemistry. They're a similar type of player in the sense that they're not the biggest guy, they're not the most aggressive, but they're very, very hardworking when they want to be. Very, very talented as well. Can definitely finish. Not uncomfortable with the puck on their stick either. Some players are pretty uncomfortable and uncertain. These two forwards don't look out of place. What else is there to say about this first? Okay, Boston go on the penalty. So Winnipeg get a nice power play. Forbert high stick. Um, and then that leads to a goal off a really nice transition play by Winnipeg. Really dangerous team when they are able to use their speed through the neutral zone. And our wingers had to do a really good job of slowing them down or preventing them from gaining speed. Doing anything, right? Could be a little pick, could be just backs checking really hard, could be your defense making a step on their own blue line. But Wheeler, Kopp, and Scheifele are a really dangerous line almost against almost any team in the league, and just a really nice transition goal. There's a little giveaway in the offensive zone. The puck just goes out the other way, off Kopp, off back skate, and into the net. Great period of play. Really, really nice period. 2-1 for Winnipeg after that period, and Winnipeg were deserving to be ahead. They had good energy and a lot of the run of play. Our third line was the only line that was looking active, looking like they wanted to skate. They brought good energy after the Winnipeg goal. And they were buzzing around the net. They weren't just trying to establish a high game, they were getting deep in behind the enemy red line, 200 feet from their own net, playing a really, really long game. But that will do it for the first period. 2-1 Winnipeg. Going into the second, the Jets are out shooting the Bruins 11-4. And the reason why I mentioned 11-4 is because it's going to come up relevant later on in this period. So Marchand takes a really distant wrister slash snapshot coming in over the blue line early in the second period. And the reason why I bring up that kind of irrelevant wrist shot is because Marshy had an injury in the last game to his shoulder, where Hathaway had a little bit of a dirty hit from behind. Marchand went into the boards awkwardly and came up favoring his shoulder. I want to show you this clip because it was very, very not fun to watch. When you see a player unable to lift their shoulder up over their up even to 90 degrees, right? We create a 90-degree angle here. That's a big problem. Hopefully just on the rotator cuff and not up here in the collarbone region. That was not a good sign though. I was really, really sad when I saw that Twitter clip because I thought it was at least, at the minimum, a separated shoulder, which would be really, really sore for a long time. At the most, it could be a broken collarbone and he could be out weeks, if not a couple months. That is a couple months. But alas, he after Marchand took the shot from distance, easy save by Hellebuck, he just rolled it out. He did a long skate behind the net, around the boards, a far long skate, right? Intentionally rolling out his shoulder. He did his right side, both sides, and then just the right side again. And that just shows how much of a warrior Brad Marchand is, that he's in so much pain and working through it and not afraid to take shots on goal or go into the dirty areas of the ice. Third line, talked about it at the end of the first period. They're still working in the second. Jake DeBrusk forces a turnover in the neutral zone. Forbert shots deflected by Coyle, and Charlie Coyle breaks his cool streak. He's not cold, he's just cooling off a little bit. Really nice to see him put points on the board, even though that's not what he's there for. On that line with, DeBrusk, Coyle, and Steen. Coyle is responsible to be the man at home, the safe guy at home. I can't remember if I said earlier who was the centerman in that DeBrusk Steen synergy, but whatever, it's Coyle. More third line energy by Boston. And they drawing interference penalties, which is really, really good. That means they're moving their skate. That means they're moving their feet. When Steen and DeBrusk are skating, there are very few players in the league who are going to be able to keep up with them defensively and mark them appropriately, as they're being very active and disruptive in the enemy zone. So Boston on the power play is very, very dangerous. 2 high energy one-timers. There's a bit of a modified second unit going out there with DeBrusk getting moved up. I can't remember who else was on there, but the second unit was getting Coyle was on there. The second unit was getting a little bit modified on that power play as the Cassidy was going with the lines that were working, that were showing progress and action. Because at times in this game, Boston have seemed like a team with 3 different lines with 3 different identities. So the first and second line try and be carbon copies of one another with high confidence, high aggro, high skill and talent, possession of the puck, and setting up for great plays. The second line does it a little bit more through fast transitions and breakouts and counterattacks, whereas the first line is just overall dominant and hardworking. This third line is very skilled and fast, but Coyle adds a level of grittiness and work rate in the corners that lets that line pass. And then the fourth line is just grit, pure grit and power and willingness to go to the dirty areas of the ice. Sometimes that helps the Bruins, sometimes it hurts them. And it seemed like at times it was doing both in this game. In the first period, we were a bit disjointed, whereas only the third line was giving us energy, and that started to change in the second, but the third was still our best line. With 6.5 minutes left in the third period after that power play, the shots were now 15-15. So the Jets had outshot the Bruins 11-4 in the first. Boston had completely reversed that in the second. Up with 6.5 minutes left, the shots are now even, 11-4 for Boston in the second. And at times, that was because Winnipeg were doing a little bit of puck watching, where Boston were getting power plays, the third line was skating really actively, and they were leaving a couple Winnipeg defenders watching, wanting. However, it's not good to be puck watching. It's acceptable if you're not conceding goals in your latent shifts. So as long as you're maintaining your defensive structure, you're doing a good job of bending and not breaking, you're surviving in a sense. In a game where you're ahead, sometimes you do just have to survive. Or sorry, in a tie game, but you haven't had the run of play. You do just have to sometimes survive the run of play and hope that you can get a good shift going and build some more energy coming back into the ebb and flow of the game. So as they're doing the bend don't break, Boston are trying to start and force it, right? They're starting to get a little bit frustrated by how Winnipeg are keeping them to the outside areas of the ice. And so they start to try and drive the net really hard. Really good teams will crack you open this way by saying, we understand you're trying to keep us to the outside areas of the ice. We're not going to let you do that, though. We're forcing the puck into the danger zones. Charlie Coyle started to do it. Um, I think Foligno did one as well. That's something Foligno's really good at, is crashing that net, causing a lot of chaos in front of it. I try to talk about the positives for Nick Foligno for this year because there haven't been a whole lot. He's been mostly healthy. The points haven't been there, but the energy, leadership, experience definitely have been. Underrated element in the locker room publicly. And if he were here when he was 30 instead of 34 or whatever he is now, he would have been a much more, a really, 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 really big fan favorite in Boston. Unfortunately, the production isn't there, so the fans are a bit cool on him right now, especially when he's replacing players like Oscar Steen sometimes in the lineup, where there's potentially more upside for a 23-year-old. Okay, that's enough about the roster itself. Let's keep talking about the game. So the ebbs and flows are starting to go back Winnipeg's way as they weather this storm. But, um, and they're finding their legs, starting to move them again, doing less puck watching. That ends the second period at a 2-2 scoreline, and we've got a really, really exciting third in front of us, where it hasn't been one team dominating the other, but it's been waves. One team's had the run of play, the other team's had to defend really well, do responsible shift changes. Then it's gone the other way, where in the second period, Boston, even with the longer shifts, were doing a good job of keeping Winnipeg hemmed into their own zone. As we go into the third period, um, Boston are still looking to establish more of that cycle game, that deep north-south game that they're getting behind the enemy red line. Right now, it's still a lot of transition game, a lot of break into the blue line, and then set up a nice outside around the horn play. Um, Great teams can do both. Great teams have that Tampa Bay potential of fast breaking in and setting up a really nice around the horn. Teams like Carolina are going to get it deep on you, forecheck really hard, and make you pay. Make your forwards really have to make your defense. Sorry, really have to work and think quickly. Third period starts. That hard play into the boards I talked about with Dubois and Coyle ends up with the glass breaking off. That was really, really, really shocking at the time. You're like, is everyone okay? Not something you see every time. And brought back those flashbacks to the Van Bryan, Lucic glass smash incident. Lowry takes a really, really, really bad penalty for the Winnipeg Jets, though. 200 feet from his own net, he trips Charlie Coyle behind the net. So 200 feet from Hellebuck, but in the offensive zone, behind the goal mouth, he trips a Boston Bruins player. I That's a really tough penalty to take, and it's just irresponsible stick placement. That's all I can say about that one. After Marchand has a little giveaway in the offensive zone, Boston rebuild their attack and set up a really, really classic Pasternak one-timer on that bumper position. I think he's standing literally on the face-off dot, around the horn, probably from McAvoy, but I can't remember if it was the seam pass from Marchand. Beautiful rip from Pasta. It's one that every team in the league knows is coming. I almost called them Winnipeg, but Washington do this really well with Ovechkin, and every team has copied suit to a certain extent. Then Winnipeg going back-to-back power plays. So Boston were able to grab the lead through a power play goal. Winnipeg then get two opportunities almost back-to-back on the power play. First, Steen takes a high stick in the scrum along the wall, and then Rask takes a delay of game penalty where he just shoots it over the glass. The puck didn't roll on him or anything, just tough break for Rask. And Steen on that high stick in the scrum, going in for a check, just his stick is, again, irresponsibly too high. So those are two lapses in attention and focus that Boston need to clean up. It has to be a full 60-minute game that is very, very clean, or really good teams will punish you, like Colorado. So those two power plays for Winnipeg are fantastic opportunities to get back in this game where you may not have been outplaying them in the last, 25 minutes, but you can put a stamp in this game and carve your way back into it. They get really one nice point shot, one-timer setup, but other than that, Boston do a fantastic job of clearing the zone. Lots of really, really good clears. After Boston are able to kill these two penalties, it just leads to a really, really fluid game. There's a back and forth action where the puck's moving a lot, not a whole lot of whistles, and not a whole lot of scoring opportunities. That's really, really good for Boston if they aren't letting it get away from them, if they're able to control the pace. It's a really dangerous game, though, because teams like Tampa will want to draw you into games like that late when the score is within one. They'll try and draw it into a shootout. Like Pittsburgh, really, really good at going into a shootout. Just when they have players who are so hot, like Heinen, Rodriguez, Malkin, Graz. Scary team. I think that's basically it. Hull had a really nice walkthrough on the offensive faceoff. Just Hull is showing me new layers to his depth, or new depths to his game at every opportunity, and I'm pleasantly surprised by how he is growing into his role as a 2C. It's definitely not one that we were super comfortable with, but it really, really, really does unlock players like Charlie Coyle on that third line to outperform. Charlie Coyle is not good enough to be a second line center. He's too good to be a third line center. Really, really, he's making enough money to be a second line center, so he better be better than third line. Really, really good. Really, really good. More third line shifts are bringing energy to this lineup. That's so, so, so important for this team that they have sources of energy that are reliable. I need Jake DeBrusk to bring that energy every single game. He was flying out there tonight. Maybe doing a little audition. Who knows? Who knows? Last little part about the game. 5 minutes left or so. Marchand has another giveaway in the offensive zone. 3 total. I'm not going to harp on it anymore because he's injured, playing through stuff, and had an assist on the game. But he was doing a little bit too much. He's still doing a little bit too much of forcing that back pass. Sometimes it's best to get it deep, Marchand. I talked about it in the Carolina game. That cycle game, when you have Craig Smith on your line, it actually drastically changes some of the identity of your line. Pastrnak is an absolute sniper with who draws a lot of attention to his position. So he doesn't have to go to the gritty areas of the ice and draw people to him there. Defensemen and forwards are going to be drawn to him naturally because of how dangerous he is. Craig Smith is a very different type of player, very much of a glue guy, gritty in the corners. He is not afraid to work like a dog to get that puck back. And if Marchand cycles it deep for him on that wing, I have great faith that Bergeron and Craig Smith going into the corner actually sets up Marchand to cycle back around up top and float. Marchand can set himself up for more goals if he is the one cycling it deep, letting Bergeron and Craig Smith go in and attack, and then he can cycle up with McAvoy and whoever, Vax or whatever, Riley. Paston, Hull, again, still developing that synergy. I talked about it when they were talking Sandberg. They're still developing a lot of transition attack through that middle area of the ice. Opponent second lines have to really, really, really be on their toes through that neutral ice because we will punish teams for it. Boston's first line gets a transition attempt. Berge has a wide open 2/3 of the net, but just rips it next to the post. Over and wide. To end the game, Washington go on the power play. Nosek just tries to stick lift, misses. It's kind of similar to how Marchand got his nose smashed by Dowd. Just a missed stick lift, and stick comes up. Ouch. This is a fantastic opportunity to Winnipeg to draw this game into overtime, salvage a point, right? If not, I make this 7, make this 18. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Boston, they are able to bend, not break themselves. They have 2 opportunities to clear the puck, or like mini chances, that they aren't able to do so on, that we need to tighten up again. Firmer in our own zone, but it was overall really, really, really good. I was happy with this team. Good job. Boys are able to just bleed out this penalty and get the result. Excellent. It was a stoked home crowd, and they were rewarded with a nice 2 points. Enough to keep Winnipeg to the outside. Yep. Just earn those points, boys. Keep earning them. Go in every game and keep earning these points. Our division is absolutely stacked to the gills, but that's okay because we're in a really fine position right now. These are going to be great games when we have to play the Leafs. Ultimately, the Panthers are falling off a little bit. Just they lost last night, I think. Lightning are going to be really scary. Panthers are going to be really scary. Maple Leafs are going to be really scary. Shesterkin's playing really well in net. This team is top to bottom scary. Tristan Jarry will have questions to answer in the playoffs, as usual. Scary teams. Scary teams. These 8 teams are going to give us a really, really good playoffs. Can't wait. Oh, big hit time. Sorry. Forgot a call to action at the end of that. If you could like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you liked, let me know what you didn't like. All that. Don't forget, check out for more. You knows. See you in the next.